Hello, everybody, Facebook friends. This is Darren Isaac coming to you live from Montana. I'm excited to have a special guest on with us today. Joining us from Kalispell, Montana is my business partner, Lori Davis. Hi, Lori. Glad to have you.
Hey, Darren. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Now, before I introduce our special guest, I want to just tell you that, we live in unprecedented times right now, and there's a lot going on. And so today's topic and what we're going to talk about is coping with stress during COVID-19 and some of the things that happen along with that. This applies to everybody. So our special guest today is Ryan Wetzel. Good morning or good afternoon, Ryan. Glad to have you with us.
Yeah, good afternoon. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Now, I hope you don't mind, Ryan. In inviting you on here, I had to Google you to find out some of the stuff that I knew already, but I wanted to get the specifics because it's really good stuff and I don't want to miss it, right?
Sure.
So you were a featured speaker on TEDx, TED Talks, right?
Yep.
Awesome. So I went to TED Talks and I got your bio. So let me read that first, and then I'm going to show a little video about you and some of the things that you've done in the past, and then we'll dive deep into today's topic. Does that sound good?
Sounds great.
All right,
absolutely.
So here we go. So Ryan Wetzel, here we go. He's born and raised in Montana, and you're a descendant of the Blackfeet Nation. Awesome. You're a former professional basketball player, Hall of Fame athlete. You're a coach, motivational speaker, and mental health professional with over 20 years of experience across many platforms, including suicide prevention, drug and alcohol prevention, law enforcement, community corrections, mentoring, and clinical casework. You are also, and I've seen this movie, it's fantastic, you are the co-star of the acclaimed basketball documentary, Never Too Late. Now that's awesome. If you haven't seen it, we'll put the link up. You guys can go watch it. It's awesome. You're also featured in a new book called The Rise of American Indian Basketball, which is supposed to be released this spring. Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually released now, so you can find it on Amazon. It's titled Native Hoops.
Native Hoops.
Okay. Yeah,
Very
but that's it. Yep.
All right. And you're a former graduate of University of Montana and a Montana State University Billings. You also hold an Associate's of Arts degree in behavioral science, as well as a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology. And I like the last line of your bio where it says that you enjoy being a proud father of 6. Oh my gosh. And a supportive husband to your lovely wife, Brooke. Now we'll get into your children, and how you're coping with having all 6 children, or maybe some of them are off to college or whatever, but having a house full of kids, that's amazing. So, but before we do that, I want to show this little video clip at the teaser of your movie, so that kind of gives an idea of kind of who you are and where you come from. And then we'll dive deep into today's thing. So Lori, if you could go ahead and play that, or no, wait, I'm playing it, right?
Yeah, you're going to play it.
So here, let me share this. I'm going to play it. All right, here we go.
Y'all telling me y'all trying to get to the next level, Mr. Lane. Who the hell gonna give you a job?
He wants to impress people. He wants to make an impression on the world. He'll go and tell there's no him.
I know he can do it. I know he can. I don't care how many people doubt him or what I've heard. Oh, I played against him. He ain't that good.
Doesn't matter if we sell the house, if we have to move. I don't care about anything else. I just want him to play because that's what he loves to do. And I love to watch him.
You gotta understand, you're trying to take a grown man's job. For you to make the team, you're sending another dude home to his wife and kids to say, sorry, I ain't got no job.
All it's going to take is one possession, one game, here for a coach to see him and sign him.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
There would be occasional doubts in my brain. Am I misleading this guy? Am I?
And the dreams don't always put food on the table for the kids.
I don't know. I just know he's not ready to be done, and I'm not ready for him to be done.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Let me go back over here and unshare my screen. So you and I, Ryan, we met. You were my basketball coach for my daughter.
Right. Right.
Hold on. You know what? I gotta go back over here and turn this off. I let it run. That's all right. Okay. So you were we met. You were a coach for my daughter
Right.
in Division I basketball, and I had no idea at the time, you know, that you had all these other facets of your life. You know,
Right.
with the mental health and all that stuff. So tell us a little bit about your story, kind of how you got here, and what kind of makes you uniquely qualified to kind of give us this talk today.
You know, just a simple fact that, you know, I come from a family of people that really love to serve and help out. My dad was in education 30 years. He was also a Division I basketball star. He was a coach, state title coach. You know, so that's where that background comes from. I was just, you know, always around the game, even football, baseball, basketball. That was a way out for us a lot of times, and a therapy to my brothers and I growing up. And then, you know, I had a stay-at-home mom. She worked, you know, from home a lot of times. She did a lot of substitute teaching and stuff like that. But, you know, over the course of my journey in my home, a lot of things shifted. My parents, after a long time of being married, 20-something years of marriage, you know, their marriage had fallen apart right when I started coming through in middle school. And it was tough on me simply because I watched the hero of mine. You know, he ended up leaving the house, and we had to do that across state type stuff. And, you know, for a kid in middle school, and a lot of people don't know, but then parents do, kids in middle school, that's such an important time in life. You're developing, you're growing into a young man or a young woman. You got a lot of questions, and I used to rely on my father a lot with some of that insight. And when he was gone, it was kind of bottled up inside. And so what I banked on growing up in that time period was my athletics. I was a super talented kid at a very young age. I could jump out the gym. I was slam dunking the basketball at 12 years old. You know, I had Division I calls coming in when I was in 8th grade. Judd Heathcote, my dad were good, you know, conversating about me in Michigan State. I mean, there was some big time stuff happening. But throughout that journey in my life, banking on athletics, I felt like that was becoming my identity. And so I put my whole heart and soul into it, never really contemplating any other avenues. It was strictly athletics. It was strictly basketball, and I was going to go for it. And I did. And by the time I got into high school, as a freshman in high school, I was garnering a bunch of Division I offers. I was a freshman on the varsity team. I helped lead our team to win their very first state title. Never really thought that my body would ever give out. But unfortunately, as I kept bottling things up with my personal life, and banking on this whole sports thing, I started to get an odd cramp in the backside of my right calf at 15 years old. And at this time, I stood 6'4" and had about a 40-inch vertical leap at 15 years old.
Wow. Yeah.
And so this was really, you know, the whole state of Montana was buzzing about me, and my ego was growing. But then again, my body started to kind of say, hey, look, we got a problem here. And not giving those coping tools at a young age on how to communicate. And if you guys can remember back when you were 15, you didn't really want to talk about anything important.
No.
Things that were meaningful, you know. So what ended up happening was I just kind of bottled it up and kept pushing through with that pride and ego. And coming from that kind of environment in my home, because I have 4 siblings, they're all boys. I got all brothers, no sisters. There's a lot of sense of pride in that factor, and a lot of good athletes. So that pride factor played a part in me not talking. And what ultimately happened is this injury, compartment syndrome is what I developed in my right leg. It started cutting circulation off in my foot and nerve damage and all sorts of stuff. So the doctors, they took me in after only a minute of running up and down the floor. My foot would go numb. And this was going into my sophomore year. So they go take me in, my leg gets jammed with a bunch of needles, and they discover I had compartment syndrome in my right foot or my right calf, and they filleted my leg like a fish. But what ended up happening is my leg was damaged, but I didn't know the significance, and it ultimately became permanently damaged. So I didn't get to compete at that level I wanted to at that time, and for the rest of my life. I only got 80% strength in my right calf, my right leg. So again, with that pride and everything, I was forced to sit down and talk to someone, because I contemplated and almost took my life at 16.
Wow.
And if you think about, again, when we were that young, that sports being an outlet, and then all of a sudden it's taken away, it leaves you with kind of facing your issues, or being a 16-year-old not knowing how to talk about it. Well, I think about ending my life because this life I live right now sucks.
Right.
And so that's what ended up kind of catapulting me into this whole life of just uncertainty, self-hatred, self-medicating. I was aggressive. I was hateful. I was vengeful. But then it took one night for me to realize that I needed some serious help. And that was when I almost took my life, in a dark, cold backyard at my mother's house. And that forced me to realize that, I need to do something different, because I'm not making it. And so I had the courage as a young kid to go and step up to my mother and tell her that I've been struggling. And she opened up to me and said, I've been watching you struggle for a long time, but you never talked to me. You were struggling this entire time. And I saw you struggling. And every time you come in the house, you'd be upset, and I would make an attempt, and you would slam the door in my face. And so she took me, and we sat down with the lady, and I got to open up for the first time. And I'll tell you, that wasn't easy. But sitting down with a therapist, someone that wasn't related to me, someone that didn't know my background, that didn't know me as a superstar athlete, just as a human being, made me feel good. It made me feel human. And that was my first experience of really getting the stuff that had been building up inside out. And it didn't happen overnight. It took a long time. And in the end, it saved my life. In some of the tools and such that were instilled in me at that time are with me to this day. So that was kind of that pivotal moment at 16 to turn my life around. But it wasn't easy. It didn't happen overnight. And if you ever get a chance to hear my TED talk in length, you'll hear it was a 10-year process from 16 to 26.
Well, and you didn't do it by yourself either, though, right? I mean, that's what you're saying, is that you finally had to come to the point where you reached out to have people come in and help you through this time, right?
Right. And it was a stumbling block after stumbling block. I mean, you develop these kind of these negative tools, as I always kind of reference them, where if you don't like what you're hearing, smashing a hole in the wall and threatening somebody, it wasn't working. And then you'd feel bad about it because you are human and you have emotions. So you show that anger and aggression, but you're crying behind closed doors. So it was just to work through that, again, was a process. But then once you become a father, and once you become a husband, and you hated the things that happened to you as a kid, and if you want to break that generational situation, you got to start stepping up and doing things differently. And that's kind of where my calling started to form into helping people.
Well, I'm sure that you had a lot of anger there too.
You came from basketball coach now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What's that?
Go ahead. I said you probably had a lot of anger to deal with, which was probably just the shift of your, the career path that you were taking. I know a lot of, like, my kids, I saw them struggle with that too. My son would hit the wall, punch a hole right in the wall, and being like your mother, I didn't know what to do. He didn't
Yeah.
want to talk to me about the things that he was going through. So the
Right.
fact that you can help so many people, just especially with what you're doing right now, I can think of so many people that are going through things that are going to watch this and relate to you again. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, you bet. You bet. Absolutely.
So you came from being you're a basketball coach, and now you're a life coach, a mentor, healthcare professional. Talk to us a
Yeah.
little bit about what's going on now in society with COVID-19 and some of the things that are happening with people being isolated and self-quarantined, and some of the things that might be happening, that maybe we could talk about there from the mental health aspect.
The way I work, and it's a little interesting, but I have an extensive background working in corrections and law enforcement, and for a period of time I worked at a pre-release center and sat down with individuals that had 20 years in prison, 5 years in prison, guys that I've worked with in the jails here, and I would have to sit down and try to find hope with these guys that were restricted in their freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so I'd have to sit there and try to motivate these guys into looking out at their life at this time and make sure, hey, we still can be hopeful here. We still find ways to be productive and healthy. And how do you do that? Well, you got to look within yourself. What got you here? Well, these guys would open up what got them there. And then it would be like, okay, well, how do you better the situation so you don't continue to come back? And I used a lot of that in my own self-work through this current time, being locked up in my house, having to sit home and redirect my face-to-face guy. I'm such an individual that loves to go out, goes into schools. I love sitting in a classroom with 30, 40 middle school kids to talk to them about healthy coping skills versus negative coping skills. I love and thoroughly enjoy it. But not being able to do that, that's part of that experience of me growing up as a kid. I always wanted to help. And so not being able to do that like I generally do, I have to redirect my thinking. So the important thing that I encourage people to do is, sure, this is a stumbling block or some form of way of restricting what you're usually used to doing. Well, find better ways to help you grow. I talk about self-motivating, having a 15, 20-minute window every morning. Get up, do a little bit of exercising, get the endorphins going. What else can you do? Well, I live out in the country. I take a walk every day, every evening for a good 15, 20 minutes. I got self-motivating books, things that I can invest my time in instead of dipping into stuff on social media or on the news that can drag you down. And they might be telling you some informative stuff, but again, you're already feeling down, not productive, and you're influencing your house with all this negative input. Limit that stuff.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. And that's kind of what I do is I'm reflecting on my experiences working with these individuals that were incarcerated to help me understand how I can grow better.
Well, and that's true too, because, basically life is based on our perspective, right?
Right.
Winston Churchill said, a pessimist sees the difficulty in the opportunity. An optimist sees the opportunity in the difficulty. So we're in a difficult time right now, right?
Right.
So, but there's still opportunity out there. It's not doom and gloom. The sky is not falling. We are going to get through this, and it depends on how you approach it. It will determine your reaction to it and how it really affects you. And that's the same thing in any area of mental life.
Right.
Mental health and stuff like that, right?
Absolutely. And it's key. I'm such a family guy and a supportive person that, I encourage people to reach out, whether it be, we're fortunate nowadays to have this FaceTime stuff and even seeing a physical face-to-face, whether it be digital or over the phone. But I think it's so important to have that as well, because, hearing it, we're in this together. having those supportive members. And I really encourage people to not surround themselves with individuals that are a trigger for them, for people, that are easily influenced by the negative. I think it's so important to surround yourself with people that are uplifting and hopeful and can be a little bit honest with how you're acting and responding to this situation. And, people that are in recovery, I've helped immensely during this time, that sit in their home where it was a trigger for them and they would relapse. And I tell them, no, I encourage them to do FaceTimes and such and reach out so they don't sit there with an idle mind. I did a video on Facebook today about that. Don't let this thing idle. Stay busy, stay productive, because an idle mind can lead to a very bad spot.
Yeah, no, that's totally true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, when we're talking about different types of stress that's going on right now, there's a lot of fear and anxiety. I mean, we've had in the last 2 weeks, 10 million people have applied for unemployment, and there's going to be more. It's probably going to get worse before it gets better.
Right.
What groups of people do you think you could identify that would have more difficult times than others, and what types of stress, like with addiction and suicide and depression, do you see different groups of people having, like even from parents to children? And how important is it for like parents to be a good role model for their children? Maybe try to install more of an encouragement rather than getting fearful. You know what I'm saying?
Totally. As far as a parent, and I'm a dad, and I have my children, and I'll tell you, not feeding it all that much. I got, my youngest is 12, my oldest is 21. And, the conversations I have with one or the other is completely different. My 12-year-old, he is concerned. He's got his concerns about why he won't be, when is he going to be able to go back to school to see his friends? He actually misses that. I stay hopeful there. I tell him that it's going to happen. I don't know the time. I don't know when that's going to happen, but it will happen. Why don't we FaceTime one of your friends? And it's that simple. I threw all his buddies online the other day, and I encouraged all of them, about 3-4 of them, to get online and play video games together. And next thing you know, that whole room's laughing. And that part of, yeah, this is happening. There's this virus out here doing what it's doing. You need to know the seriousness of it. But then we're going to move on from that conversation. We're going to start kind of doing our thing and being safe here at home, and dad, mom love you. And just that positive affirmation really helps that kid. My 21-year-old who's going into the medical field, just like your daughter,
Yeah.
She's getting in the medical field, and right now she's taking a couple courses that are really, really informing her on some of this stuff and sanitizing and how long these viruses exist. And I get to go in a little bit more depth with her, and she actually gives me a little bit more insight on the seriousness of this whole deal, because it's fresh in her mind. She's very educated. So it's fun to sit there and have that more adult-like conversation with her. But then again, I reiterate that everything's going to be fine. I got to remember I'm a dad here first. So I encourage her to keep learning, but to maintain. And that's where I go with the parenting aspect. And I try to limit that negativity, because that fear and anxiety will grow in these kids, and it'll trigger some serious stuff that you don't know you're building inside of them. So I try to water down that fear. And then just, you mentioned the unemployment situation and how do we go again about our day to day. And again, I just encourage people to just continue to reach out, have an agenda. I wake up every morning. I ain't leaving this house. I'm staying here, but I'm still getting up. I'm showering. I'm shaving. It's one step forward where I'm kind of like, okay, now I feel like I get something done. Then I take a good half hour. I read a part of the book that I'm reading right now. I have this agenda set. If I need to do 2 different exercises today, I'm going to do 2 of them, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, because I have the time, and then making sure that my family's okay. And it's either FaceTiming or, the simple stuff. I make sure that. But again, there's unemployment people. I encourage to not stop. I guess it's been bombarded. You have this website crashing. Just keep working at it. Don't give up. it'll eventually happen, and stay hopeful.
Yeah, I know we started doing Zoom Hangouts. So I get all three of my daughters on, and we all get on. The first time we did it, we were on for over an hour. And we just talked and chatted about things. And it was so nice because you kind of felt like they were right there in the room with you. So
Yeah.
we've started having Zoom Hangouts. You can do it with FaceTime, you can do it with Messenger, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's been kind of a different way to connect with people, but we're still connecting with people. So let me ask you another little two-part question here. What are some of the signs that a person individually can look at within their own life that they're starting to stress out? Maybe they don't realize that they're going down that road that possibly lead to depression or even suicide. What are maybe some of the signs that other people on the outside should look for in people, so that way we could, oh, wait a minute, we might need to go help that person. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So the number one thing is just paying attention to the demeanor of that individual that if you're seeing any kind of short temper, short fuse, any negative responses back, swear words more increasing, the disinterest in religion or faith-based stuff, or more interest in faith-based stuff, watching individuals giving away prized possessions, those kind of things that you're like, wait, that's not normal of them. It's right there in front of us sometimes. And oftentimes after a person, either dies by suicide, it's like, oh my gosh, after I've done numerous presentations on this stuff where I'll say a little bit, and then after the presentation, I have people coming up crying, going, wow, you just said pretty much what my husband was going through. And paying attention to the curtains closed, the TV off, and it's 2:00 in the afternoon. Those kind of things. A distance, and I know we're talking about social distancing, but when you are noticing someone just closing off and keeping the conversation short, that's another red flag, in my opinion, that you need to maybe investigate a little bit more. And it's as simple as just, hey, how you doing? And if they're reluctant, you be persistent. I'm fine. Don't worry about it. Leave me alone. I'm good. No. Hold on. And if you don't feel comfortable talking to somebody about how they're feeling, whatever, you yourself visit with someone that you think would be willing to step up and confront this individual. That is so crucial.
Well, now is my next kind of question. And is, so as an individual, if we start recognizing the fact that, hey, I might be getting a little bit depressed because maybe I'm sleeping in too late, or my sleep habits are off, or my diet, I'm starting to eat junk food or whatever, reaching out, what if there's an individual out there that's listening to this right now that doesn't feel like they have somebody they can talk to, like they don't have a family member or a friend? What can they do? Where can they go?
Well, there's always there's information all over the internet, and the one that I encourage is the 1-800 number. I got to pull it up. 1-800 numbers that are up all over the place. National Suicide 1-800 number, and that is 1-800-273-8255. That's another big resource that I promote all the time, and I encourage people to look up all the time because they're 24/7, 7 days a week. And again, it's that National Suicide Prevention Hotline. And also another one that I'd want to throw out there too is the National Violence one, because you got a lot of people that are dealing with issues at the house that they've been struggling with, and at these schools, stuff like that, can't help out during this time. It's crucial for these resources to be out there via internet for these people that can call at any given time that may be facing something. So the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. That's another great resource that I continue to push out there for these people to see.
Right.
Yeah. Same with veteran services.
I had talked to my aunt yesterday. Her daughter is in the medical field, and I don't know if you guys have heard this as well, but the patients are spitting in the nurses' faces, and they're threatening to shoot them because they feel that the nurses and the doctors are contagious. And so people are kind of losing their minds in the hospital right now. And I think that the nurses really need our help right now. The doctors do. They need encouragement. They need to have a, they're in this business because they love people and they want to help people. Also their curiosity of science, right? But at the same time, they're in, their lives are in jeopardy right now.
Right.
And so even more so, if you guys have family members that are in the medical field, tell them you love them, you appreciate them, that, thank you for doing what you're doing, and they need encouragement because they are really being affected. They're crying, they're very upset, they're tired, they're pushed to their limit. The same with the grocery store clerks and all these other people that are, also being treated horribly because there's no toilet paper and it's their fault. So this stress level is increased in people that are still working, right? So some of us are in that depression because we're not working or because we're not getting a check, but look at the people that are working through this.
Right.
It's really on both sides. We've got to really sympathize with people right now. This is the hardest time I've ever seen. And I went through the crash in real estate, in 06 and 07 and 08. And that was rough, seeing people lose their homes that I sold homes to, seeing divorces and foreclosures and suicide as well. And this is a whole nother game. My grandmother, 93, was on Zoom with us for the first time yesterday. She's never seen anything like all of us on a screen at the same time. She was so emotional about it. But at the same time, too, we realized how little we do see each other. My nephew is 20, was he thinking 22? And he said to her, "Nice to meet you." He'd never met her, and that's his great grandmother. That's how busy we all get. So the good side is that this has slowed us down too, and made us connect, I think, with family and friends.
Well, the thing that I really want to emphasize, you nailed, Lori, is the taking advantage of the little things. Once we get the green light to be out and about and human beings again, I don't want to forget this time. The little things of calling and checking on my 92-year-old aunt, and sitting back and having the phone on speaker, listening to my 82-year-old aunt complain about how my 82-year-old uncle is being lazy now. And this guy's, he's retired, but it's just great conversation to have. And, really, really, it's humbling to be in this all together and hearing these things, but there's growth and positivity that, yes, absolutely, we need to continue to just lean on each other and know that we're not alone. And lastly, I want to tell a quick story. When I called my 82-year-old aunt, she had shared a couple insightful situations that she went through back in the day, and it was so humbling to hear. Like, I know that we're where we are today, but we're still conversating and face to, she, for my grandfather to pay for my grandmother to have my aunt, he had to sell. He had donated a cow to the hospital to pay for the pregnancy.
Oh,
and
wow.
She went into how she grew up with no indoor plumbing. And the first time that she ever went to the bathroom in a house was when she was like 9, 10 years old. And I'm sitting here like, wow, the modern day life right now is very convenient for us. We are so fortunate to have what we have. And so when you sit down and you talk to some of these family members that are kind of coming off the tail end of the Great Depression and stuff, it's like, okay, we've survived that. We survived the crashes in 06, 07. We're going to survive this. And we got to stay mindful about that. That's so important.
Yeah, very true. Good words, my man. Love it.
Yeah.
All right, Lori, final thoughts?
Well, I think that also in the police departments and things like that you've worked with people, I mean, it's wonderful that you're giving us an insight on the people that are in jail and in prison and how confined they are and how they are literally dealing with, an 8x8 room or whatever, and that's their life, And I think we all kind of feel imprisoned right now, within our homes, and just remembering to get outside. Here in Montana, it's been a little bit chilly, but you can still put your coat on and you can go outside and, take a brisk walk. I think that's important to remember to do. And like he said, get up and get showered, shave, get dressed, start your day. I know if you're going to sit around in your pajamas all day, you've probably seen everything there is on Netflix and binged on it. you know, and that's great. But if you're gaining weight and you're starting to feel like, you know, maybe you're smelling a little bit, you need to get your shower and you need to get moving. But, you know, those types of things have to be done on a daily basis. If you're not used to it, you know, you're going to get bored, and boredom doesn't lead to good things, you know. So you definitely need to have an agenda, some type of plan. I know for us as real estate, I don't feel like things have slowed down. We're super, super busy right now, still with multiple offers and of course coaching and training and everything that we have going on. So we don't feel as much stuck, but it is weird too. Like I showed a house yesterday and it said, don't come in if you don't have hand sanitizers. I mean, you know, and you're wearing your mask out and your gloves out. So it's a different world, you know, that we're all dealing with. It's scary at the same time, but you know, again, we do have the ability to help each other and help so many through this. So I do encourage people as well to get on Facebook Live with your family, you know, FaceTime, Zoom. Zoom is free if you don't need to upgrade the account, if you guys don't know that out there. But, you know, make some time to say, you know, I'm getting dressed today. I'm going to get on with my whole family today. We're just going to have a great time. Doing puzzles, things like that, you know, that get your mind moving, reading a book, motivational things. There's way more than watching TV to do, which can kind of, you know, put you in that depression. But I think it's important that you guys plug into what Ryan has to share with you. Check out his website. He's very insightful. As police officers too, you're seeing a lot of stuff going on, crazy people calling 911 for toilet paper, you know, all kinds of stuff going on, and people aren't thinking the way they usually do. So, you know, just again, thank you so much, Ryan, for being here today and pointing out these things and being a resource and help, sharing your story, which I know is hard to do. But, you know, I'm really grateful for that. And I really enjoyed meeting you and also looking at your website. And I am going to get your book and also look over, you know, the movie that you have out, look over, watch it. Cool. So we'll share those links, you guys. So everybody has all the information they need to, you know, reach out to Ryan and also see what he has going on that could help you as well.
Thank you.
Very good.
I appreciate it.
Ryan, final thoughts?
No, just, you know, I encourage people to also, if you want to feel good about yourself, make a phone call to somebody and see if they need anything. You know, you just be a shoulder to cry on or whatever. If they're trusting and willing to touch and hug, then so be it. But be a service.
Just reach out. Well, I'll leave you guys all with my final thought. Here it is. You know, it goes back to the optimism, pessimism type of a thing. And so I always like to ask people, you know, is the glass half full? And you usually get a question one way or the other. No, the glass is half full or it's half empty, right? Well, I'm what's called an eternal optimist because I think the glass is always full if you count the air, right? So everything's based on perspective. So let me just leave you guys all with this, that you're watching this. You're not alone. In this time of isolation, there are ways to connect with people. And if you feel like you're in a position where you might be headed down that road, reach out to someone. You can reach out to one of us. We're on Facebook. Give us a call, message us. We'll get on a Zoom with you. If you're home alone and you need someone to talk to, we'll Zoom with you. So just let us know. We'll put you on our Friday night hangout. You can come hang out with us. So, Ryan, I put your link up there for aslmotivation.com. So if somebody needs to get a hold of you there, they can go check you out. They can hire you as a speaker and come in and you can motivate people the way you do. And I just want you to know, both of you, Lori and Ryan, I appreciate you guys so much taking the time here to be here today. And let's just rock on and get through this together as a community.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you too. Totally.
Appreciate
Absolutely.
you both. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you guys.
Thanks,
See ya.
guys.
Bye-bye.